Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Junior Gold Arsenal Building. I'm Daniel, as usual, and joined by a special guest once again, Alek, who was featured in my episode with the 2020 PBA draft. Check that out on your screen now if you haven't yet. So, Alek, how's it going?
Life's great. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I think we're going to help a lot of people here pick the right benchmark ball.
That's right. So I do want to say a little bit what's going to be different in this episode. So in the previous episodes 1 and 2, I started with my roommate Jared Freed in college. Due to the coronavirus, I'm home now, and I did episode 3 alone. And now I have episode 4 coming at you with Alek over a Zoom meeting because of social distancing, and also this is really cool and fun to do. Because he lives a little while away from me, so it's always nice to see him. I love it. And so, without
Yeah,
further ado,
it's social distancing to the extreme.
correct. That is, we are very distant, not just 6 feet, but more like miles. I don't know how many miles it is to where you live, but
Hundreds.
yes, hundreds, that's for sure. Texas is large. So anyways, let's hear what you have to say about, what is a benchmark ball? Like, what do you define a benchmark ball as, Alek?
So to me, a benchmark ball is when you're not really sure what kind of pattern you're facing. Even if you know the pattern, but you're just not sure what kind of ball motion you need, how strong or weak of a ball, or even how straight or how deep you want to start. It's that first ball you're going to start with that, to me, it has to be versatile. You have to be able to play straight with it, have to be able to open up your angles with it, and it has to be useful on a variety of conditions, most likely anywhere from 37 to 44 feet, depending on volume. So to me, that's what a benchmark is.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think that that's a perfect definition. Something that's very well-rounded is a great idea to have as a benchmark ball. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up one example of what that I would find in a benchmark ball, and we're going to kind of talk about the differences between our styles and why that changes what kind of benchmark ball that we would like. So personally, my first go-to benchmark ball has a little over a year and a half now, probably to a year, has been the Tactics from Track. The Track Tactics has been an incredible staple in my bag. I have 2 of them that I ordered right as soon as I could, right when they were announced. One's pinned up and one is pinned down. So for my benchmark ball at a tournament like Junior Gold that I don't know the patterns, but I know that they're going to be pretty difficult. They're sports shots. And I want something that I can get a really good read off of that I like throwing. It's going to be my pin-up Tactics. And that's going to be the one that I would assign as a great versatile benchmark ball, because I can really throw it on anything and feel comfortable to know, hey, I need to ball down, I need to ball up, or I need to stay the same. So, Alek, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your first choice of a benchmark ball and why that you see a difference in our choices.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, you have 3 tactics now, plus
Yes.
one hybrid.
Yes, I do.
If that's not a benchmark ball for you, I don't know what would be.
What would your first choice be for a benchmark ball?
For me, it has to be the Storm IQ Tour. I had a Venom Shock before that, and I in fact am on my second Venom Shock since the first one cracked. But for me, with just the layout I have in the house I bowl at, it's just the perfect balance of being clean, but not. It's not like flippy at all. It's still early and round, but still continuous and punchy, along with really great carry and control. I can pretty much throw it on anything. I can throw it on a short pattern. I can throw it on a medium pattern. And with a little breakdown, I could probably even throw it on a long pattern as well.
So, do you want to talk about, why that our choices are different? Because, I went with an asymmetric ball that's very medium to line, and you went with a symmetric ball.
I actually did not get that ball. I did not buy it. We have a local firefighter who bowls a lot at our house, see him a lot. And when he dropped from 15 to 14, he graciously gave me it, which I thank him every time I see him for. That ball has won me a lot of scholarship money. For me, I always sand it down. It's pretty much always at 2,000 or 1,000. But the difference between you and me and our choices is, for me, I'm a two-hander, probably in that 420, 430 range rev rate. I do have a good bit of axis rotation, although I prefer to stay behind it as much as I can. I like to see a more end-over-end roll, so it has been going down. Versus Daniel is much more end-over-end than I am. Probably has around 50 less rev, more ball speed.
Mhm.
So he needs the help of an asymmetrical core along with a bigger cover stock than what's on the IQ's tour.
Yes, I would completely agree. A lot of times I lean towards, starting with a little more surface and getting the ball started very early because, something that I need is something that can help the lack of revolutions that I do create compared to somebody like you that's two-handed. You said, and I would completely agree, you have about 50 more or even maybe 60 to 65 more revs, and I think that that is a very valid statement. And I think that, that shows, definitely one of the biggest differences between our styles and our choices of bowling balls for benchmark bowling balls. So once, just to kind of inform everybody too, once you start to see that breakdown from your benchmark ball, like maybe for me, like if I choose the tactics, then it's rolling a little too early now, it's hooking a little too much, or you're throwing your IQ, then what do you think a normal, ball down would be? Would it be to go to something that's like straight up, like the weakest thing in your bag, like a Columbia 300 Messenger, or like a juke, or something that's very low end, or would it be to kind of just go medium to low, or what do you think there?
I think a lot of it depends on conditions. For me, I like to just move left and adjust with hand position. I don't really like to get out of a ball right away.
Hmm.
But if there's a lot of volume where, even though the spot's starting to burn up, if I move left, there's just a puddle of oil. And if I move right, I'm just in the friction right away. You could even ball up and just get in the puddle and bounce it off of the friction you created. And if I were to ball down, I would almost never ball down right to messenger. I think that's a really big jump. Going from something that's early and smooth and round to something that's just going go 50 feet, hit friction, and just go left. It's not something I personally would do. It's not a motion I like, and it's not something I would recommend to anyone. I'd probably I would go down to a ball that's going to be cleaner through the fronts, and depending on the conditions, you can decide if you need more back end punch or maybe less back end punch. Maybe the back ends are too much. Um,
Absolutely.
so for me, a ball down would be something like a Venom Shock, where it's a little cleaner and a little more punchy, uh, due to the layouts I have on the ball and surface prep. But for someone else, it might just be straight to like an IQ Emerald.
There you go. Yeah, that's a perfect answer. And something else that I'll kind of talk about, another great ball choice for me that I was planning on having at Junior Gold this year, before the cancellation was announced, of course, but that was my good old trusty Brunswick Phantom. That's right here. I know I've talked about it in previous episodes, definitely shown it. Has a pin down layout right below my ring finger. And of course, no weight hole with the new rule coming up, no reason for a weight hole. Something I see out of this ball, it's a very good benchmark piece, especially with being pinned down. It's usually something that once I start with that bigger ball that's asymmetric, like the tactics that I talked about, usually I can find myself falling down to this because it's pinned down. That means that the hook phase is a little longer, and so that it gets a little further down the lane before it really wants to start revving up. And certainly something that I find myself falling down to sometimes from that big asymmetric core to this symmetric core is a really good piece. So do you kind of agree with that, Alec? Is there anything different that you would do since your style differs?
No, I agree with everything you said. I'm also a really big fan of the Brunswick Phantom. I've had a chance to throw my pro shop operators slash my coach, and we really like it a lot. Out of box, we thought it was just way too much. It comes out at, they say 1,000, but it kind of
Mhm.
looks even less than that with all the
Yes,
dust.
it does look dull.
So I would absolutely, for anyone who has that ball, probably take it up to at least 2,000, unless you are bowling on a specific condition where you know you need 1,000. And honestly, I would let it lane shine, just so it can be a little cleaner. That way you can use it as a ball down. And if it's during the practice session, you can then put surface on it if you know that with the lane shine, it's too clean.
Absolutely, yes. I left mine at 1,000 out of box, and I kind of use it lane shine. I try not to touch it up too often because then it does become more similar to something like a tactics because it's so early rolling, so it kind of changes that. So I try to leave it lane shined a lot, especially for like house shots and things too. There's no reason to have it at straight 1,000 because it is very dull, like you said, whenever it comes out of the box because I remember drilling mine still, and it was super dull. And so I completely agree. I think that that's a great way to say it. Are there any other balls that you wanted to discuss or go over for this video?
I personally do not like shiny balls as a benchmark. They just don't match up to what my eye sees. But a really good example of a good one would be a Rodman Pearl, if you could somehow find one or if you have one. And in some cases, for me, at a lot of tournaments, it's not a traditional benchmark. It goes against everything we talked about earlier. But first ball out of my bag at a tournament, it's probably going to be a purple hammer. So for a house shot, it's staying in the car, maybe the house. But for a tournament, I think for a style like a lot of two-handers or high rev one-handers, I think a purple hammer can be a benchmark in that
Or if you
case.
just really, really love to play up the gutter like I do, then it might as well be a benchmark
Yeah,
ball. I remember junior gold last year. The most struggle, like the thing I struggled most with, it wasn't the lane patterns and it wasn't the mental game, but it was looking at the rack and figuring out which purple hammer belonged to me that I was throwing because everyone threw it in Detroit. It was just insane.
I thought you were going to say it's because you only had two purple hammers and not three.
I do have two. That's right. All
Four
righty.
inch not early enough. Let's go to 3 inch.
Yeah, I know, right? But yes, so do you have any final thoughts on choosing a benchmark piece that you want to go over before we conclude?
Um, I mean, really, for me, what I look for in a benchmark is something that's going to be early, round, and controllable.
Exactly.
For me, that's going to be on the lower differential side and pretty much always going to be a low RG. An example of something that would be a high RG benchmark would be like a Money Badger Tour from 900. The RG in that is 257 and 15 pounds, and it is slightly asymmetrical. You could even go with a Volt Solid from 900, which is again 256 RG, and that's symmetrical. They're definitely not traditional, but for certain styles that maybe have really low tilt, it could help them get through the front part of the lane. Another option for a lower rev bowler or high ball speed bowler would be something like a Rotogrip Idol, a Phase 2, or even an Original Forge. Although those are traditionally considered more than a benchmark, for those bowlers, you could look towards that range.
All right. So I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Junior Gold Arsenal Building, Alec. And for everyone
Thank you
out
so much
there,
for having me.
yes, it was my pleasure. And for everyone out there, be sure that this next Friday will be episode 5 to conclude and wrap up the series. I'm really excited about that. As you see, yes, the 5 from Alec. And really excited about that. Alec's going to be joining me again for that episode for next Friday. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day and see you later.
Bye bye.